Hey everybody, it's Damon. Welcome to a brand new episode of Gogopoda. Sorry I took such a long break from the show, but I actually was working on a couple things. We got a new site coming up, working on some personal stuff professionally, things like that. And I'm revamping the show, so it's not going to be kind of like the news recap show that it was before, because it got to be hard to do it, and it was hard to keep up with all the events that was happening, and I was really the only person working on the show, so I needed to change things up a little bit. So it's going to be more theme based, kind of how we did things with the Accidental Wrestling Fan, focus on a specific topic as opposed to trying to keep up with everything that's happening, because there's so much stuff that's happening. It started to make watching wrestling become a chore, and it started to make MMA feel like a chore instead of something that I love and I'm very passionate about. So I'm glad that we're changing it up. So you're going to see specific topics, kind of like the worst tough winners, things like that, favorite K1 Grand Prix winners, stuff like that, because Gogopoda, again, is a combat sports podcast. So there's going to be a lot more varying topics, because it's going to be able to open things up a little bit more and get more people on the show so they can talk about things that they like. So I can get my mom on the show to talk about some boxing, or get other people that are into, like my buddy Phil, he loves kickboxing. I want to get him on the show to talk about K1 or Lion Fight, things like that. So we can focus on one thing and not have to be worried about, oh shit, who's fighting coming up in 3 months, things like that. So change things up a little bit, keeping it fresh, keeping it fun, and that's what it's all about here at Pod Bros. Today, though, I will be talking about something that is current, and obviously by the time this hits the site, it'll probably be a little outdated unless you end up listening to it today, which is going to be Saturday. But right now it's Friday. I'm going to throw this up on my YouTube channel and send it to John so he can put it on the Pod Bros YouTube channel. But I wanted to talk about the Fight Pass event coming up on February 27th. It is Anderson the Spider Silva versus Michael the Count Bisping. That is the main event, 5-round middleweight fight. In the co-main event, Gegard Mousasi versus Thales Leites. So those are the two fights I want to talk about in depth, albeit very briefly, but it'll still be pretty in depth, and hopefully you can take something away from this, and hopefully you'll learn something new. If not, hey, I'm sorry about that, but hopefully this is riveting listen. So the first fight out of the two that I'm going to talk about, obviously the co-main event, Mousasi versus Leites, should be a very winnable fight for Gegard Mousasi. I don't know why I said Thales Leites. I think Gegard is going to be a little too strong, and he's the better striker. I would not be surprised to see Gegard probably finish this via TKO or win a dominant decision. Gegard has not had the best UFC run. He's 3-3. He lost his first fight to Machida, submitted Mark Munoz, got submitted by Jacare Souza, knocked out Dan Henderson, beat Costa Philippou, and then he was knocked out by Uriah Hall in the fight in which he was winning. Mousasi, I think with this win, is going to get back on track to where he needs to be, which is in the top 5 of the middleweight division. I think he's capable of that. I think he is in the top 5. I'm not positive on that, though. Let me check the profile. He's number 8. So I think Mousasi's a top 5 guy. He's just got to get back on track. He makes a lot of errors tactically, and that he's not aggressive when he needs to be. He almost kind of falls asleep at the wheel. He's passive to a point where it costs him a lot of fights. I'm sorry. Mousasi's 4-3 in the UFC. I forgot about his debut, which is a win over Ilir Latifi. He was supposed to fight Alexander Gustafsson at light heavyweight. But Mousasi, he falls asleep at the wheel tactically. He's not very aggressive when he needs to be. He hangs back a little too much, which is what cost him the Strikeforce light heavyweight title. Despite him damaging Muhammad Lawal, King Mo, off his back with a lot of shots from his guard, elbows, punch. Well, he can't use elbows back then. It was illegal, but a lot of punches, hammer fists, things like that. But he kept getting taken down over and over again. And Thales Leites, who is a very accomplished grappler, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, he is the number 9 ranked middleweight, by the way. He's got a lot of submission victories, 14 to be exact. Not going to really threaten Gegard too much on the feet. Gegard is a very decorated kickboxer. Leites does have the skill set to get this to the ground, and take Mousasi down. Mousasi's defensive wrestling's not that great, despite him being so strong, which is something that's always kind of plagued him in his career. But Leites, I don't really think he's going to have too much to offer. And I wouldn't be surprised if Mousasi ended up submitting Leites at some point either, because Mousasi's really good off of his back with his triangles and arm bars. I wouldn't be surprised if he caught one of those submissions on Leites, or Leites try to take him down. But other than that, I see this being mostly contested in the feet. Mousasi using the range. He's got a great jab. He likes to fight kind of long, and I think he's going to eventually overwhelm Leites and get his favorite position, which is the mount kind of against the cage. It's a weird kind of mount. He used it to knock out Babalu, and he used it to knock out Dan Henderson. Mousasi is a killer. He's got great ground and pound. When he does get you hurt, like I said, he can kind of hang back, which has plagued him, like I said, but he hurts you. He's going to come after you, using that same vein of like John Jones, Shogun Rua, these kinds of guys that just don't let you live. Once they smell that blood, they're going to finish you. And Mousasi's got the finishing rate to prove that. I believe the vast majority of his wins are submissions. He's got 19 by knockout and 12 by submission. So the man knows how to finish. Only 6 of his wins have gone to decision out of his 37 wins. So Gegard Mousasi definitely knows how to seal the deal, and I will not be surprised if he does that tomorrow. Main event, Michael Count Bisping versus Anderson Silva. Michael Bisping, obviously coming off a win against Thales Leites, who we just mentioned. Been kind of inconsistent in the last few years, even dating back to 2012. He started the year with a loss to Chael Sonnen. Then he beat Brian Stann. He got stopped by Vitor Belfort. Then he beat Alan Belcher. He lost to Tim Kennedy. He stopped Kung Lee. Got stopped by Luke Rockhold. And then he finally managed to get some consistency and get a 2-fight win streak. 2 decision wins over CB Dalloway and a 5-round decision win over... he didn't get 2 decision wins over CB Dalloway, my bad. He got 2 decision wins. One was a 3-round victory over CB Dalloway. The other was a 5-round victory over Thales Leites. Anderson Silva, obviously the legendary former UFC champion, definitely going to be in the Hall of Fame. He is coming off a suspension. He hasn't had a win in almost 4 years, which is kind of crazy to say that. His last victory was stopping Stephan Bonner, and then obviously the 2 catastrophic losses to Chris Weidman, which is kind of freakish. They both happened almost at the same point in the same round in both fights. Round 2, 116 for the leg break in the rematch, and then the first fight, 118. So it's kind of crazy. And then he originally had a decision victory over Nick Diaz, but it became a no contest because he tested positive for drostanolone and androtestosterone. Andro and weird steroid stuff, but he got in trouble for it. I can't pronounce it. And Nick Diaz also tested positive for marijuana metabolites. So Anderson Silva, he needs a win in a big way. Obviously, he has not been as active as Michael Bisping has been. Anderson's fought in the last 2 years, or 3 years rather. He's only fought 3 times. Obviously, he had to take that long layoff. He didn't fight at all in 2014 because of his broken leg. But Anderson needs a win in a big way. I think not only to stay relevant, should he want to try to get back into the title mix and maybe fight Luke Rockhold, or maybe even set up a third meeting with Chris Weidman, should Weidman beat Luke Rockhold at UFC 199. I don't see how Anderson at this point in his career and his age, I don't see a way he could beat either one of those guys. Especially Weidman. Weidman seems to have the key to beat him. And I think Luke Rockhold would present some problems to Anderson in regards to how strong he is on the ground. And Anderson doesn't have the best defensive wrestling again. But back to the Bisping-Silva fight. Anderson, I think, is going to win this fight because Bisping, I think, is going to try to use a grappling strategy. But Bisping, he's got a good double leg takedown. He likes to kind of press guys against the cage and suck their hips out. It's pretty much the only takedown that he really knows how to set up. You see it in fights against Brian Stann. He's used it a lot to great effect in his light heavyweight days as well. Bisping doesn't really sit down on his punches a lot. He can overwhelm you with volume, but the only ways he's ever knocked anyone down in the UFC is in the clinch. So I don't see too many ways that he can hurt Silva standing in the feet. And I don't think he's got the wrestling chops to try to hold Anderson Silva down. As we all know, a lot of people sleep on Anderson Silva's ability off his back. He's got great triangle chokes. He defeated Chael Sonnen with a triangle choke, and he defeated Travis Lutter with a triangle choke. He's got a submission victory over Dan Henderson. Anderson Silva knows how to seal the deal on the ground, and people, for whatever reason, are kind of sleeping on that fact. They think that Bisping will be able to take him down and hold him down, but I don't think that's the case. I think Anderson is going to light Bisping up on the feet. I think he's just a little too slick, even if he is a little older. Bisping isn't exactly the fastest guy, and he likes to throw a lot of 1-2 combinations. Like I said, he doesn't really sit down on punches. I don't think he's going to hurt Anderson at all in this fight. And I think he's not going to want to try to clinch with him. Like I said, it's the only way he's knocked anybody down in the UFC. You don't want to be in Anderson Silva's clinch. Anderson Silva's clinch is like death. It's like a vice grip. You saw in the fight with Chris Lieben, the 2 fights with Rich Franklin. Once he clinches you, it's game over. If you're in tight on Anderson Silva, you're going to get kneed, you're going to get elbowed, and it's not going to be a good time. And honestly, I think Anderson's probably stronger than Michael Bisping. People forget how strong Anderson Silva is. He was able to overpower Dan Henderson, who was a tank of a man. And I just think Bisping's not going to get past the 3rd round. I think Anderson's going to eventually catch him with something and stop him. I think he's going to toy with him and finish the job. And Bisping definitely has raised Anderson's ire. You see when Anderson is annoyed with someone, he doesn't really care for someone, that's when we usually get that violent killer Anderson Silva that we all know and love. You know, he had issues with Vitor Belfort and he knocked him out in the 1st round with a front kick to the face. Obviously the 2 Chael Sonnen fights, he absolutely showed total disdain for Chael Sonnen leading up to those fights, and he ended up stopping him twice with a triangle choke and then a knee to the body. And Yushin Okami, it was respectful, but I think that there is some annoyance because Okami was quote unquote the last guy to beat Anderson Silva, but it was by DQ in a fight that Anderson was clearly in control of before an illegal up kick. And who else did he show a little bit of disdain for? Damian Maia, he didn't finish him, but he definitely wanted to toy with him because of some there's some sort of cultural issue that he had with Damian Maia that I can't quite remember. But Anderson Silva, like I said, when he's pissed off, he's going to try and finish you in spectacular fashion. And I think that's what's awaiting Michael Bisping tomorrow afternoon in England. That's it for this episode of Gogopoda. It's short. Like I said, that's why I'm throwing it up on YouTube so people can hear it tonight, and eventually it'll be on the site tomorrow. Well, breaking news, actually, I just got texted. Andrei Arlovski and Alistair Overeem are going to be fighting very soon. I believe they're going to be fighting in the Netherlands, so that's going to be a good fight. Overeem, I wouldn't be surprised if he got a title shot if he beat Arlovski, but definitely a winnable fight for both men. They're not as durable as some of the other heavyweights, but they definitely have the ability to finish the night for either man, so that's going to be a good fight. With that being said, check us out on Twitter at Gogopoda MMA, Facebook.com/Gogopoda MMA. You can email us as well, GogopodaMMA@gmail.com. If there's any topics you want us to talk about, whether it's Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu, MMA, boxing, whatever it is, email us, get at me on my personal Twitter as well, at GreatDame89. And let's rap about fights. It's one of my favorite things to do. So have a good one. Thank you for listening, and enjoy the fights.